You reach for the coffee before you even open your eyes. You pour the wine before you've decided you want it. You light the cigarette, you scroll the app, you order the second round. It feels like a choice. It rarely is. You've probably been told this is weakness, a lack of willpower, a flaw in your character. But the real answer is far stranger, and it starts almost 70 million years before humans existed at all. Picture a small tree shrew somewhere in the ancient forests of what is now Malaysia. It isn't looking for a thrill, it's looking for food. It finds a cluster of fermented nectar, sugar broken down by wild yeast into alcohol, and it drinks. Not once, every single night for its entire life. Researchers who studied this animal, led by biologist Frank Wiens, found that some of these pen-tailed tree shrews were consuming nectar with an alcohol content comparable to strong beer night after night with no signs of impairment at all. No stumbling, no sedation, just steady, repeated, deliberate seeking. The shrews weren't the only ones. Slow lorises, certain species of bats, even elephants in parts of Africa have been observed seeking out fermented fruit again and again, favoring it over fresh fruit sitting right beside it. This wasn't an accident of one strange species. It shows up again and again across the animal kingdom in creatures that never learned a single word, never read a single headline about the dangers of drinking, never made a conscious decision to chase a chemical feeling. They just kept coming back. Why would evolution build a brain that seeks out a psychoactive substance on purpose? Here's the part most people never learn in school. Alcohol didn't start as a drug, it started as a signal. Ripe fruit ferments. Fermented fruit smells strongly of ethanol. And ethanol, to a hungry primate moving through a dense jungle, means one thing: calories are nearby. The animals that could smell alcohol from a distance, and that felt a small reward when they found it, outcompeted the animals that couldn't. This is sometimes called the drunken monkey hypothesis, first proposed by biologist Robert Dudley. Your attraction to buzz may not be a modern accident. It may be a 5 million-year-old survival tool, still running in a body that no longer needs it for finding food. That's the twist underneath almost every craving you've ever felt. The system is ancient. The environment around it changed. The wiring didn't. Deep in your brain sits a small cluster of structures most people have never consciously thought about, the mesolimbic pathway. Its job is simple. It doesn't reward you for things that feel good. It rewards you for things that predict something good is coming. This distinction matters more than almost anything else in this video. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge spent decades running experiments that split this open. He found that the brain actually runs two separate systems that we usually lump together as pleasure. One is wanting, one is liking. Wanting is dopamine. It's the surge that makes you reach for your phone, pour the drink, open the fridge at midnight. Liking is a much smaller, quieter chemical response involving opioids, and it's the part that actually produces satisfaction. Here's the unsettling finding. In addiction and in many everyday habits, wanting can grow enormous while liking barely grows at all or even shrinks. Have you ever kept eating something after it stopped tasting good, kept scrolling after you were bored, poured a second drink out of habit rather than desire? That gap between wanting and liking is exactly what you were feeling. Berridge's team demonstrated this in animals by manipulating dopamine levels directly. Boost dopamine in a rat's brain, and it will work harder and harder to get a reward, pressing a lever again and again, even when its facial expressions show no increase in actual enjoyment when the reward finally arrives. The wanting system had taken over completely, running independent of whether the reward was even worth wanting anymore. That single finding reshaped how scientists think about compulsive behavior of every kind, not just drugs, but food, gambling, shopping, and the small glowing rectangle most people check within minutes of waking up. Your ancestors didn't need to understand any of this. They just needed the drive to work. A hunter-gatherer who felt a small dopamine pull toward ripe, fermenting fruit found food faster than one who didn't. The drive that made bitter, energizing plants like coffee and tea feel rewarding kept people alert enough to watch for predators through long nights. The chemical machinery that makes you crave a drink after work is the same machinery that once kept your ancestors alive in a much harsher world. But the world changed faster than the brain could. For most of human history, a buzz was rare, effortful, and self-limiting. You had to find the fermenting fruit before the animals ate it. You had to grow the barley, harvest it, wait weeks for it to become beer. Archaeologists have traced residue from fermented rice, honey, and fruit in pottery from a site in northern China dating back roughly 9,000 years, some of the earliest direct evidence of humans deliberately making alcohol rather than simply stumbling across it in the wild. That shift from finding a buzz to manufacturing one took thousands of years to fully take hold. Coffee had to be discovered in the 9th century, according to the earliest documented accounts, by goat herders in the highlands of Ethiopia who noticed their animals became unusually energetic after eating certain red berries. Even then, it took centuries for the plant to spread beyond a small region, cross the Red Sea into Yemen, and slowly work its way into the coffee houses of the Ottoman Empire, and further centuries still before it reached Europe. Every ancient source of a chemical high came wrapped in labor, scarcity, distance, and time. The buzz was always downstream of effort. Now it doesn't. Now the reward is instant, concentrated, and always within reach. A drive-through window, a vending machine, a phone in your pocket that delivers a dopamine hit with a single notification sound. Your brain wasn't built for a world where the thing it evolved to chase after weeks of effort is now available in under 3 seconds. Think about how strange that actually is. Your ancestors' reward system was calibrated for an environment where a sugar rush meant a rare piece of ripe fruit, found maybe once a day if they were lucky. Today, the same system is calibrated against a supermarket aisle stocked floor to ceiling with concentrated sugar, engineered to hit that ancient reward system harder than anything nature ever produced. The gap between what your brain expects and what your environment actually offers isn't small. It's one of the widest mismatches in the entire history of the species, and it opened up in less time than it takes a language to change. This is where a second, quieter piece of the story becomes impossible to ignore. It isn't only about the substance, it's about the cage. In the late 1970s, psychologist Bruce Alexander ran an experiment that changed how many scientists think about addiction. Earlier studies had shown that rats in small, isolated cages, given access to morphine-laced water, would often drink themselves into serious harm. It looked like proof that the drug itself was simply irresistible. Alexander suspected something else was going on. So he built what became known as Rat Park, a large, colorful enclosure with other rats to socialize with, wheels to run on, and space to explore, and gave those rats the same access to the drugged water. The isolated rats in bare cages consumed far more of it. The rats living in Rat Park with company and stimulation and purpose mostly left it alone. What does that tell you about your own cravings? It suggests the buzz was never only about the chemical. It's about what's missing around it. Boredom, isolation, stress with nowhere to go. A brain that evolved to expect a rich, social, physically demanding environment placed instead into a quiet room with a screen will reach for anything that reliably fires the reward system. The coffee, the wine, the scroll, the snack. Different substances, same ancient circuitry, same modern emptiness underneath it. None of this means the craving isn't real or that it's simply a story you're telling yourself. The dopamine surge is measurable. The pull is physical. What it means is that the craving is not a personal failure appearing out of nowhere. It's an old, well-built system reacting exactly the way it was designed to react, inside an environment it was never designed for. Think about your own last craving. Was it really about the drink, the snack, the notification? Or was it about the 10 minutes before it, the silence, the stress, the empty stretch of time your brain was trying to fill? There's a strange comfort in that question, even if the answer stings a little. Every culture in recorded history has found its own version of the buzz. Fermented drinks appear in the earliest written records from Mesopotamia. Coca leaves were chewed by workers in the Andes for energy and endurance. Tobacco was used ceremonially by indigenous peoples across the Americas long before European contact. Tea shaped entire economies across Asia. This wasn't a flaw shared by a few weak-willed societies. It was universal, which is exactly what you'd expect from a drive built into the biology itself, not into any one culture's choices. This isn't an argument that nothing matters or that every craving deserves to be followed. It's the opposite. Once you see the mechanism clearly, the craving loses some of its power over you. It stops being a mysterious pull you can't explain and becomes something closer to weather, predictable, traceable, something you can plan around instead of something that ambushes you. Some researchers studying modern habit formation have pointed to a simple pattern that echoes Alexander's rat cages almost exactly. The people least likely to be pulled under by a craving aren't the ones with the most willpower. They're the ones with the fullest lives around the craving. Connection, movement, purpose, novelty. Fill the cage and the water in the corner starts to matter less. The pen-tailed tree shrew is still out there tonight, drinking fermented nectar under the same forest canopy its ancestors used millions of years ago. It isn't ashamed of what it wants. It doesn't need to be. Its environment still matches its wiring. Yours doesn't, not anymore, and that mismatch, not any weakness in you, is the real story behind every reach for a buzz. So tonight, when you pour the coffee before your eyes are even fully open or reach for the glass at the end of a long day, you might notice something different. Not guilt, just recognition. A 5 million-year-old signal, still firing exactly as it was built to, in a brain that never got the memo that the forest is gone.